Hey everyone, how's it going? It is Tuesday, July 22nd, and I wanted to come on here today and talk about where I am. Yesterday would have been 10 weeks since my surgery, and wow, like 10 weeks. It feels like yesterday, and yet it feels so far away. So the last few weeks, I've really been talking about wound care, which is still a complete pain in my ass, a necessary evil, but still ongoing and challenging. So I guess let's start there and then we'll get into all the other things. So, good news, bad news. So, the eschar on my breasts, which is the necrotic tissue, um, on my left breast is actually completely starting to shed. I have one big scab area, which is barely hanging on by a thread. It's kind of really disgusting, to be quite honest. But we have to let it do its thing. The tissue underneath is all really good and new and yay. But it is a difficult and gross situation. So we're still continuing to treat with the hydrogel. I'll talk about the Santanil in a minute. Um, so yeah, so been texting with my plastic surgeon and been working with the wound nurse to make sure that we keep it clean and dry. And well, you can't see on my shirt today. Oh, and you can kind of see. So, or kind of not because it's too dark, but I'm draining everywhere, even though I'm completely bandaged underneath. So sometimes I'm having to replace the bandages twice a day because with that top tissue falling off now and the new tissue underneath, like there's a lot of drainage. But it is just part of the process, right? And again, it's better that we addressed it this way so that the skin has time to regenerate and do all the things versus debriding it and then potentially causing a new scar on top of it and having this process take a lot longer. So, in some ways, I am fortunate that my skin and my tissue is responding in this way so that I can actually have this new skin underneath and let it regenerate on its own. So, yay. Even though the process is kind of disgusting and tedious, right? I do see my plastic surgeon on Friday, and if that tissue has not fallen off on its own and it's still sort of literally hanging by a thread, they will take it off in the office. So we'll see how that goes. And then my right breast is actually starting to, that top eschar layer is starting to thin out and it is starting to shed, not as much as the left. I mean, the left is like ready to go. Um, but the right is still taking its sweet time to kind of move along. But we are starting to get some penetration of that top layer. It is starting to lift from the corner. So we do expect over the next couple of weeks that will, lift like this one did and continue to shed. So in the meantime, I'm still changing the bandages 1 to 2 times a day, depending, using the silver hydrogel and then patching up. My belly button is completely healed now. So that's awesome. It is, I think I said this in another video. I did not wind up with the weird, like, cat butt, as they call it, belly button, which is awesome because that was the one thing I told my plastic surgeon is don't do that to me. And he didn't. But my belly button is actually now, instead of being like a hole, like a circle, it's like a crescent moon. So who knew? But it's really cute. So I'm all about it. And it healed really well. So knock on wood, something went right in all of this. My abdominal line, my incision where it opened up, we are packing that with collagen now. And so it is a really interesting process. So the collagen actually comes in this like fibrous disc, and you sort of rip it in half or cut the piece that you need. You fold it down and then you pack the wound from bottom to top, right? So you want that whole cavity, which again, you guys, like I can stick my finger in the hole. It is not awesome. But you want that whole cavity to be filled up. So I clean the wound. I sterilize the inside with some sterile wound solution. And then I cut a piece of collagen to stuff in the hole, and then I bandage that sucker up. So it's it's really gross. And it's just such an odd sensation and feeling. But the good news is that you can now see that where the hole was like kind of square and deep along with how it opened up, the back of it is now forming that tissue and starting to close from the inside out, which is exactly what we want. So that's really good news. It's just taking its sweet time, but it's good that it's happening and moving along. So, oh, so moving back to my breast. So I was supposed to start this next set of medication for the breast to help remove the necrotic tissue called Santanil. And unfortunately, I don't know if I'm going to be able to use it. We did a test run yesterday as we switched over to the medication, and it gave me like a really hoarse voice after a couple of hours, and my heart rate went way up. So we don't know if I had a little bit of an allergic reaction to it, or, yesterday I kind of had a lot of coffee too. So could it have been that? Not really sure. We're going to kind of test the waters again tomorrow. I did remove it from my body yesterday and then redress the wounds with the hydrogel. Took some Benadryl just to be safe, and so we're going to kind of talk through the plan tomorrow. Now, I don't have to go to the Santanil or some other product. The hydrogel was working. It was just we were looking for a way to expedite this process. So that would have been the next level of medication to use before we looked at kind of surgical options. And I don't know that we need to go to surgical options yet, but that was the idea, was to help expedite things. So it's sort of a little TBD right now. So we'll see what happens. But things are moving along in terms of my wound care. It's just kind of an ongoing process, right? And I think I said this in my last video, is that, we really do expect this to kind of carry on for at least the next 6 weeks, right? And then we'll hopefully within that time, we will have gotten all the necrotic tissue off and we'll be in a better place for really kind of just now letting everything heal before we get to surgery in November. So that's kind of where we are for wound care. Where am I overall in kind of progress since surgery? So I guess let's first talk about range of motion. So last week and over the last couple of videos, I've been like, hey, look at me, I can raise my arms. So I'm pretty straight now, which is great. I do still have a little bit of like cording going on across my chest. It's not super painful. It's not as tight as it was. I've really just been kind of working on it every day. I literally spend my day doing different sets of exercises throughout the day to keep good range of motion happening. And it's really just for me on my own to do this because right now I can't go to PT because I have home health care. It's a whole other situation. So I am just working through it, watching videos, talking to a physical therapist to understand what I can do at home and know the boundaries of making sure I don't go too far or overdo it. But my range of motion is pretty good. And so that's pretty exciting to be 10 weeks out. I'm back to doing stuff in the garden, and I vacuumed this weekend, and I know that sounds super ridiculous, but cleaning makes me happy and it's super cathartic. So to have not been able to clean my house for 2 months, even though I cleaned it really well before I had my surgery, was like, I was so giddy. I was exhausted at the end of the day. But I like got to vacuum my bedroom, my office, kind of the upstairs. I got to dust everything. Glorious. I cleaned my bathroom, like just being able to have the ability to do that, move my arms around, move my body around in that way, felt really, really good. So that was super exciting, kind of again getting back to that level of normalcy after having spent weeks of really very incremental gains. It was great. It was great to kind of like be like, hey, oh, I can do this. Now, that being said, I also realized I cannot lift the vacuum up and down the stairs. Like that is way too much pull on my stomach. I took like 2 steps and I was like, fuck no. So I needed my man to be able to do that because it was not happening. I was like, you got to carry the vacuum. So there are definitely some things that I know that I can do, and you learn pretty quickly about like what your boundaries are. So abdominal wise. So I still have some crazy pulling in 3 spots of my abdomen. So the first is right here, that top line that we talked about last week, where I get some pain, kind of thought that I might have had a hernia that's kind of stitched. Like there are some movements here that like even when I'm walking, or like I notice if I'm sitting for too long, I start to hunch over, like my it's just not all together there. If I stand for too long, if I stretch too far, like if I go to reach up on a shelf or something, that pulls and it's really uncomfortable. It is getting better, but it is still just a weird feeling because prior to surgery, like I never had that feeling. Like I was never really aware of this top line of my abdomen or my stomach or whatever. Like there was just no awareness about that. And now I'm like hyper aware. There is also this left side. I think because I am right-handed and I roll to my right. When I get up, I push off on my right, that the left is just still super tight. It's not getting as used as much as the right. So I have to spend some additional time sort of stretching this side. So this side is still kind of pulled a little tight. It feels like my right side is kind of like open and my left side is still very tight, right? So I'm having to spend a lot more time, nurturing that side and doing exercises to help stretch out that side. Um, and then the other thing is my below my belly button. So like my belly button, and then there's like probably 2 inches to like the lower part of my stomach, and then all the way through my pubic line. That is still really tight and also very numb. It is coming back online, but it is in that very pins and needles stage. So touching my skin is like really needly, not comfortable at all. Like it sucks. And so that's really difficult because there are times when I go to stretch my legs out where like the moment I kind of stretch my legs, it feels like needles as I pull, right? Or as I try to stretch. So it is a really weird feeling. And I remember this from when I broke my leg and I had my leg surgery, when those nerves were coming back, if I went to point my toes, I would get this like shooting pain and like needles up my legs because of the way the nerves were responding to it and the way the muscles were. And that's kind of happening in my groin area as well. So it's not super fun, but it's finally coming back online, which is great. And I was told that it could take 10 to 12 weeks before that happens. And some people it could be even longer. So I'm just sort of like trying to wade through, that coming back online. But overall, like I feel like I have really good mobility again. I had been waiting for that, and it feels good, right? Yes, there are still some limitations, but it's largely better. So let's go back to my breast for a minute. So the other thing is in the beginning, like the lymphatic fluid is starting to move around. In the beginning, you'll hear a lot of women say that it felt like you have cement on your chest or you're wearing an iron bra, which you do because you're so aware of how your breasts are on your body. As I sit here and hold them, right? You're so aware of it because they feel like they're stuck to your chest and they feel really heavy and really, really tight. And it takes a long time for that to go away. And I have been doing like a lot of just kind of gentle massage and kind of feeling. And you want to do that for a couple of reasons. You first and foremost, you want to help move that lymphatic fluid around, but also because it helps if you've had nerve sparing and nerve grafting to help with sensation. So I've been doing a lot of that where I walk around kind of like rubbing my boobs, which is Interesting. Now, a lot of women will also do it over the tops of their boobs, which I cannot do at this time because I have these, areas that we're treating. And so I don't necessarily want to be rubbing that area a lot, but I can go around the outside where I don't have any wounds. And that's been really helping. Also across the top of the chest and into the armpit, because that helps with the moving the lymphatic fluid to the right areas to that main channel so that it can exit. Now, the moment I lay down and sleep at night and I wake up in the morning, it's like all back stuck, but it's a way to get it moving. But now it's starting to help my system kind of get back to normal because it's not lasting as long and I'm able to move the fluid pretty quickly. So it's great, right? Like so my boobs are actually getting softer, right? They're not as hard because they're not backed up with fluid as much. And it helps with the sides as well and kind of the overall swelling. It also helps address one common issue that those of us who have had mastectomies, um, and whether you're reconstructed or not, with sticky armpits. So I think I talked about this way early on in my videos, but when you disrupt the lymphatic system the way that I have and the way many women have when they have this surgery, is that you get like this kind of sticky armpit situation. There is not enough deodorant in the world right now for me to be putting on because my armpits just keep getting sticky. Like it's not that they're sweating a lot. It's just the opposite. It's like they're getting dry, but then, they're your armpits. So it's like a closed, moist environment. It is the most bizarre thing. So they just feel kind of sticky all the time. So I'm like constantly putting on deodorant, trying to like, give them some moisture, but also like make sure that, I don't know, that they have some slickness to them. So that's been very interesting. So, but now that my boobs are getting softer, this is kind of helping a little bit. But I do spend a lot of time like also kind of trying to rub my armpits so that, we get some moisture and some fluid back in there and the body can kind of self-regulate and get back to normal. Now, my understanding from women that I've talked to in my group and some of the research I've done is that may honestly never fully come back to normal. But the more you kind of work on it, the hope is the better that the body will self-regulate and kind of course correct. So that's what I'm hoping for. Because it is like a very uncomfortable feeling, like having them always be kind of dry and sticky. Um, so the other thing is sleep. Sleep, glorious sleep. Being back in bed is amazing, but it is still very difficult to. I am a side and a stomach sleeper predominantly, and I can't roll to my side or sleep on my stomach because I have wounds and that's not good. And B, right, like it just hurts still, right? So I'm sort of getting more comfortable with sleeping on my back. Plus, I wear a CPAP, you guys. So all around, I'm just a sexy bitch. But like, it's really difficult to, um, sleep in positions you're not accustomed to, right? So I wind up kind of rolling to my side a little bit. Still, I'm surrounded by pillows and have the pillows under each arm. And then, kind of, if I roll over on my side, I'm sort of tucking the pillow under my breast so that it's, softer. So it still is awkward sleep, but I'm finding my way of getting comfortable with it. And so I am at least getting 6 to 7 hours of sleep a night, which is good because in the beginning, when I first moved back to bed, I was only getting about 5 hours before I'd have to get up and move to the chair or whatever. And so it was very broken. So now I am sleeping longer, which is good, but my sleep isn't still really super restful. I've had a couple of really good nights, which is great. I think it's just because I'm so tired from maybe not sleeping well for a couple nights that by the time that third night rolls around, I'm like so exhausted that I sleep pretty soundly. So, um, but that's where we are with sleep. But it is really, really nice to be back in bed. So, and speaking of the recliner, that goes bye-bye this week. So, because I've been back in bed for about 2 weeks now, there's no reason for me to have the recliner anymore. So they're coming and picking up that bad boy on Thursday, which is great. And but it was a lifesaver, right? I don't know how I would have gotten through those first few weeks of coming home had I not had, I mean, honestly, the first 2 months of me, being home, had I not had it, it was just such an important part of my recovery process. So it was great. It was cost effective, and now I can send it back. So Godspeed. I'm like really happy to be kind of over that. Although it has made me think that now I want a sitting chair in our bedroom. So TBD if I wind up purchasing one. So there's that. Everything else, I think, mentally I feel better because I feel like I'm making progress now. I do feel like, I'm coming back to normal, right? That sense of normal is coming. But the wound stuff is hard, right? Emotionally, it sucks. It sucks. But I'm gonna kind of dedicate a whole video about that because I think it's really important to talk about. Not everybody experiences, what I've gone through in that regard. And I don't want to be sort of like a Debbie Downer, like this is, like this happens to everybody or whatever. Like it's just my experience, and emotionally it's hard, right? And I wish that I was one of those women that had like no issues and I could be like super positive about every aspect of this surgery, but that's not been my experience, so I'm not going to sugarcoat that or say anything that isn't true for me. But I do want to give it its own sort of space. So again, I'll talk about that in another video. So I am driving. Driving is great because it gives me back a sense of freedom. I can go to the store. I can kind of get out of the house, which is the other thing that's super important. When you're recovering and you're sort of in the house and you're limited and you can't go anywhere, you just feel really shut in and closed off. And for me, that's really, really hard. I'm a person that likes to be out and about. I can be very social, and I've just been very closed off. And that's the other thing about all the wound stuff is like I've just been sort of like not into visiting with people a lot. So that's been really difficult as well. And you can see behind me, like I have a red light I can't use. I have, pillows that are great that were from helping me recover, but like I have all this stuff that was in my bedroom that now needs to be put away. And I'm still like trying to go through all those projects and everything now that I am feeling better. So, or have more mobility and stuff too. So um, and then let's see, what else can I tell you? Support groups are great. They've been a really important part of my getting ready for this surgery, support through recovery, and also just paying it forward, being able to go back to these support groups, to people who are where I was the beginning of the process, and are questioning what should they do, how did they make their decisions. So being able to share my experience has been really great. So I signed up to be a volunteer as well, and a peer navigator, because I think it's really important to pay it forward. Hence my message in sharing these videos, and also, telling people like get tested. If you have any questions, like reach out to me. I think it's important. I think it's important for you to know what your options are, and, maybe hearing from somebody who's been through it will be helpful. Maybe not. I don't know. Um, so yeah, I think that's kind of where things are today. Again, 10 weeks out, I finally am really feeling physically good about, where I am and kind of what's going on and how things are. And, wound care aside, there isn't a day that goes by that I am not happy about having done this surgery. Like at the end of the day, you guys, I don't have cancer. I cut my risk. Um, yes, this is a long process, longer than what I expected it to be in terms of just the wound care. I mean, the entire recovery, like that is what it is. But yeah, I wouldn't change anything. I just wouldn't, it gave me literally a new perspective on my life. Um, on being able to be cancer-free, to not live in the fear. And yeah, it's new and I like it. And it feels good and free. And it was the right thing for me. So I'm gonna leave it there for today. As always, if you have any questions, comments, need any information or support, don't hesitate to reach out. Okay. Have a great day. Talk to you soon.